Hello there, this is James S. Crofty, just 1978, and having recently finished watching the anime Trigun, the one thing that struck me from the beginning of the very first episode was that it's essentially the mirror opposite of Fist of the North Star, the original 1984 series that was my first real introduction to anime. As always, a link where you can watch Trigun for yourself, either subbed or dubbed, depending on which you prefer, is listed down as the underbar. And of course, as the series continued and we learned more about the main character Vash the Stampede, his origins and the fictional world in which the story unfolds, it became clear that the Trigun anime is a heavily abridged version of the original manga, reducing a large and complex story down to a variation on the lone hero wandering the wasteland formula in order to cram it into 26 episodes, which was a strange decision to make though, since so many of the earlier episodes in particular were standalone and could have easily been replaced with a more relevant story arc explaining more about Vash and his nemesis, the world and so forth that was mostly glossed over during the series. As a matter of fact, the anime didn't even fully commit to the taking on the evil, super-powerful henchmen one by one in order to clear the way for the final showdown with the big villain cliché until episode 15. The fact that the most kawaii and innocent moe character in the series, Millie Thompson, is at least 6 feet tall and carries one of the biggest guns in the series even suggests that there was some intent to parody the classic anime stereotypes, and although the way that the anime rushed to wrap up everything before the conclusion and the ending seemed to contradict the established characters and story wasn't a deal breaker, they were too obvious to ignore. So in the end, as far as I can tell, without having read the manga mind you, so this is merely a stab in the dark, the creators of the anime appear to have decided to use the Trigun universe and its characters to explore one philosophical issue and give a message and a moral, similar to how in Neon Genesis Evangelion, the mechs, angels and everything else were all just an analogy for Shinji's constant emotional struggle with his isolation, his need to be accepted by his father, and his fear of becoming an adult, with the big difference being that Trigun didn't abandon its established story because it ran out of money and its creator fell into a deep depression halfway through the series, and thus degenerate into introspective monologues, which left most of the audience feeling confused, angry, and scared. So accepting then, even if it's only for the sake of argument, that the Trigun anime is a standalone series in which the overarching story of the manga is largely superfluous, and thus comparing it to the original Fist of the North Star anime on its own terms, a harsh desert world in which people struggle to survive with limited technology? Check. The ordinary people working to create a better future, but constantly falling victim to rampaging bands of outlaws and the machinations of the wealthiest and most powerful? Check. A lone hero with incredible skill who only wanted a quiet life with the woman who he loved, now wandering the wasteland, defeating the villains and saving the people in the towns and villages through which he passes as he searches for the one who took that woman from him? Double check. But rather than being praised and lauded, he is feared and even hated because wherever he goes, to quote Fist of the North Star, chaos always follows. Again, double check. And tag-along characters, including another wandering anti-hero with a questionable past and morals, who learns from the hero and fights beside him, falls in love with one of the female characters, and only wants a quiet life with her as well before, spoiler alert, being mortally wounded in such a way that he still has time to reflect upon his life and mistakes as he bleeds to death alone in a deeply moving soliloquy. Triple check. But there, though, the direct parallels with the characters and plot lines in the original Fist of the North Star end, because while that series preached that violence was the solution, and that in a world without police, courts, or laws of any kind, heroes must kill the villains as brutally and as painfully as possible in order to protect the innocent and ensure the future through imposing quote-unquote justice, the message and moral which Trigun preaches is, say it with me everyone, love and peace. Love and peace. Love and peace. In Fist of the North Star, Kenshiro is the world's most powerful martial artist in a post-apocalyptic society in which martial arts are the most powerful weapons, whereas in Trigun, the world through which Vash the Stampede wanders is a reimagining of the Old West, meaning that as the hero, Vash is the most skilled gunman. But in a bizarre twist of irony though, while the principle of martial arts is non-violence, only fighting when necessary and never fighting to kill, while on the other hand guns have only ever had one use and purpose, in Fist of the North Star it is Kenshiro who brutally kills everyone who he condemns as evil and unworthy of living, whereas in Trigun on the other hand Vash point blank refuses to kill, never shooting directly at a person unless he absolutely has to, and only shooting to wound when he does, because the woman who he loved taught him that all life is sacred and that no one ever has the right to take another's life, no matter what the circumstances or the provocation, meaning that when, near the very end of the series, he is finally forced to kill by circumstances beyond his control, having been placed in an impossible position, the guilt that Vash feels almost destroys him, because throughout the anime, Vash's position is that there is always a way to save everyone, including the attackers, and that if you can't find it, then it's simply because you haven't looked hard enough. This then is the philosophical issue and the moral of the series that I mentioned before, with the anti-hero who fights beside Vash having been raised to believe that life is a series of impossible choices and split-second decisions, that it is literally kill or be killed, only to realise at the end, before he dies, that Vash was right. Of course, while I fully agree with Vash on this one issue and wish that we could all live by his pacifist ideals, as the fact that he himself was forced to kill shows, reality always trumps good intentions. However, returning to the series itself, the other defining difference between Trigun and Fist of the North Star is that while Kenshiro is the archetypal strong but silent hero model, which is ubiquitous in this kind of anime, stern and dour, tortured by his past and rarely if ever cracking a smile, because in Japanese society, strength, courage and heroism are equated with cold, emotionless silence, indicative of mental focus, discipline and spiritual enlightenment, which I'll mention again in a moment. Vash is the primary comic relief in Trigun, suggesting once again, like the inclusion of Millie Thompson, that the series might have intentionally been a parody of these old cliches, with in one particular episode Vash explaining that he meditates diligently every morning for a few seconds. So then, for the first few episodes, Meryl, the other woman from the insurance company who's sent to keep an eye on Vash the Stampede because he's caused so much property damage, even destroying an entire city, that her company is losing a fortune hand over fist, and he has a $60 billion bounty on his head, refuses to believe that this annoying and perverted clown could possibly be the notorious humanoid typhoon, at least partially because Vash is hiding his skills behind a facade of dumb luck. After all, who wouldn't conceal their identity when they're hated for destroying an entire city and their dead body is worth what it would cost to actually build one? Finally though, the other main similarity between Fist of the North Star and Trigun to which I wish to draw attention is that in their own way, they are each perfect examples of the Japanese perception of violence and weapons as explained in the extra credits video links down to underbar, and if you haven't subscribed to that channel already, then their extra history series is more than worth it on its own. But as they explain in that video though, the Japanese traditionally see all handheld weapons, including firearms, as an extension of the self, because in their minds the key to mastery of combat and thus victory is always skill, mental discipline and spiritual enlightenment, not who has the biggest or most weapons. In fact, in spite of being set in a reimagining of the Old West and the creators even apparently trying to do so, only a couple of episodes of Trigun play into the whole good guys with guns myth, showing that anyone, including children and the elderly, can defend their homes, families and communities just so long as they have a gun, as the video links below also explains, that being the American "from my cold dead hands" perception of guns and violence, because instead it's not his guns that make Vash the Stampede a hero, since, as I explained before, he only ever uses them as a last resort, and when he does, uses his incredible skill as a gunman to avoid ever killing anyone. But not wanting to say any more about the series in case I end up spoiling it even further, while it's a bit of a mess for the reasons that I explained earlier, it's still worth everyone's time.